Welcome back to the Freemouse MC, and we're today reviewing a very special bike, the Honda CB650R. What makes this bike so cool? It has an inline 4, and that with 650cc at that. And I think Honda is kind of the only brand that's offering an engine like that at the moment. You have Kawasaki with their ZX400RR, but this is still a bit of a bigger engine, and so cool that we're standing in front of this bike. Also in combination with it having a cable throttle, so you basically have the old combination that I really like of very direct feel with like this kind of engine. This engine has, with its 650cc, it has 95 horsepower and 64 newton meters of torque, and the very cool thing is all the power is at the top. This engine revs all the way up to 12,000 RPM, which is like really cool, and because that's such a unique motorcycle riding feeling for me, and I'm just a fan of four-cylinder bikes. And the bike comes with loads of other nice stuff. You have Showa suspension. There's no preload adjustability in the front and preload adjustable in the rear. You have double Nissan front brakes and the typical electronic setup of ABS, traction control. You have DFT dash, and the bike is kind of in the whole neo-retro style, and that really has been improved by the owner of the bike, Jelle. Welcome to the channel.
Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, and what have you done to the bike to make it look like this? Because this does not look stock at all.
It isn't. I haven't done a whole lot. So first of all, I did a bunny ear delete, so removing the mirrors, swapping them out with bar end mirrors. You can see better out of them anyway, so and I think it looks better. And after that, I was like, since the bike has this retro cafe racer kind of a look, why not redo the stitching of the seat? I was doubting between this bike and the Rebel 500 SE. They also come in a full black colorway with a brown stitch seat, so I was like, since I chose for this bike, let's do that on this bike. So I had the seat redone by a friend of mine, and that's it.
Honestly, that's so beautiful, and to be honest, this restitched seat gives the bike a really like MV Agusta-ish look, and it looks so cool. And if you now put like brown grips on the bike, the thing looks perfect. Like, this is so cool. And the bike has a really special color, because I always overlooked this bike as a neo-retro bike simply because I did not like the whole red copper-ish color, because it didn't seem brave enough to me. It didn't seem aggressive, and at the same time it seemed kind of corporate cappuccino machine-ish, you know? And I really like this matte colorway. Like, how have you gotten that?
So as I said, I was doubting what bike to get. This is my first bike. I was just scrolling through the internet, deciding on what bike to get. I did my driving lessons on a bike like this, a Honda CB650R, the red one. I fell in love with that bike because of the sound. It was a naked bike with a 4-cylinder, which is a dying race on its own. And then I saw that in 2023 they released a fully black edition. So when I saw that, I was in love instantly. I just had to get it. So I phoned up the local Honda dealer. I was like, yo, I need to get this bike. Do you have it? He's like, He scratched his head and looked online, and he said, we might have one in the south. I don't know if it's sold yet, but if you want the bike, you need to move on it real quick. So I did some phone calls and pulled the trigger on getting it.
Honestly, such a cool bike, because I have to be honest, I really dig the look of this bike in the black colorway. And let's see how I'm sitting on the bike. For context, I'm 6'5", or 1 meter 96, and I have to be honest, for a naked bike, this is quite comfy. This really works and also really nicely works with my size because you have tank grips down here at the frame that are nice and sticky, but the mold for the tank is very big. Like theoretically, LeBron James could sit on this machine, as you see how much space there still is here. And when you grab the handlebars feel wide enough and all nice, and it's still like a slightly lean forward position. You don't have clip-ons or anything, but like this bike has still like a sporty setup that is slightly lean forward, but not too much. And I have to say, I really like it. So let's take this bike for a spin. Let's go. Short interruption in my own interest. If you have a bike that you would like me to review in Belgium or on the Atlantic coast of France or Spain, definitely feel free to write me an email.
We're now out here on the Honda CB650R, and we're doing the ride impression first because as you see the clouds, it's about to rain, and the nice full cylinder sound and feel, so good. Just downshifting and then having the sound of it, nice. And the beauty of these machines is that they, like, as soon as you go to the top, they give you the proper 4-cylinder feeling, and that's so cool. The bike feels a bit vibration intense, like you feel some vibration in your butt, and yeah, a bit of an odd one. But all in all of how I'm sitting on the bike is super comfy. Just an absolute blast to ride here. Yeah. Whoop. Yeah, this thing fucking goes. We're sitting on an A2 restricted version. I've been riding one privately before that had the full 95 horsepower, sadly we now don't get that feeling. But I can tell you from the 95 horsepower version that one feels very rapid and almost too much with how the bike feels when it's A2 restricted. I don't know how it is with the more modern bikes with the A2 restriction, but it feels a bit odd. You know, you have a very good feeling for first and second gear, but you don't really have that good of a feel for everything above that, because that's really where you feel the restriction coming in. And that's because you don't have a restriction in like how far you turn the gas, you have a restriction in the mapping. And that feels a bit odd, you know? Because on the old carbureted bikes you would just have like a limit of how far you can twist the throttle actually. And the 180 rear tire is definitely fun, and that you have all that in like a 4-cylinder-ish package is so cool. And the thing, even with A2 restriction, just goes and it corners nicely. Honestly, the sound of the motorcycle is so satisfying. Like you have all the 4-cylinder sound, and that's such a good sound, to be honest. Just like it makes you do hooligan stuff because the bike just encourages you from its like audio feedback, and how responsive the chassis is from you doing like small turns. This bike feels good. The downshift feels so good. Like the feeling of shifting down, rev matching and letting the clutch come. Fuck, that's good. Also, if this bike is open, this bike already puts your license at risk in like second gear, most definitely. And you kind of have two bikes with this one. You don't have a lot of grunt down low, but as soon as you like twist the throttle and go over a certain amount of RPM, you really start to feel the thing get going. Yeah. Yeah, it's very fun while still being very comfy, I have to say. And the suspension is hard, but like even bumps in the road and like all feel fine. Like you can comfortably ride this thing every day while still this thing just being an absolute weapon of a bike. Oh, that sound is so good. Nice, 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 nice. Honestly, the way this bike sounds makes you an absolute hooligan. I've ridden this bike open before, and then with the 95 horsepower, that aspect does not get better. I feel like this bike needs a reasonable hand. Four-cylinder engines have this thing that they do this like feedback through them becoming faster and faster as you go, and them being at the same time quite tame down low. Like this bike doesn't have a lot of go down low, even with like the full 95 horsepower. But when you then go into the higher RPMs, the thing just rips. And that is a dynamic that can sometimes be a bit, you know, encouraging bad behaviors. Even riding the A2 version here, I want one. I want this bike. I think it's cool. It's really cool. 4 cylinders are the shit. Get these bikes as long as they're still available, because with like how emission laws are changing, we will not be having 4 cylinders for much longer. And they are such a cool engine platform. Such a cool engine platform. And like me myself, I'm already starting to feel slightly nostalgic about them. Fucking cool bike. Fucking good bike. As we're just cruising here for a bit. Also the DFT dash is, I'm not the biggest fan of dashes like that. But it's fine. And it's what from the dashes I'm not a fan of, it's a better one. Like it really nicely gives you all the intel you want. I love how they mimic an analog gauge with the RPMs, with like how clearly you can see how fast you're going, and you have like fuel meter. And the fucking hell, now it's raining. Yeah, of course, with this being a naked bike, you have barely any wind and rain protection, so if it starts raining, you're just getting soaked. One slight complaint that I do have to say, this bike still has the stock tires on them. And the stock tires, they handle you leaning the bike, but you need to heat up the tires, otherwise it starts to feel slippery. It's a trend in general that I am not a fan of, is just equipping motorcycles new from the shelf with just shit tires. I mean, the tires are not completely shit, but like I would put different ones on them like right away. Of course, I get like a 4-cylinder bike is like still quite expensive to make, and Honda is with this like 650 engine platform kind of the only ones that are like offering something like that, next to something like the Kawasaki ZX400R. And the bike then is not 10k, but it's like 8 to 9k. But still, I mean, you can tell that's where they saved the 1k. You can tell they saved the 1k on the tires and a bit on the build quality. Maybe I would like to pay $1,000 more if I'm already... The thing is, if you go out and make the decision, I'm going to buy a motorcycle, you're going to spend really big amounts of money, like 8-9 grand. Most people can afford that, like, I don't know, every once in 5 years. And if they want this bike, $1,000 more is not going to stop them if you give them better build quality and better tires for that. Also, the bike is narrow and nice for like city use, so if you live in a big metropolitan area and you don't put mirrors like this on the bike, it's all like narrow enough, as you see here, for taking the one or other shortcut or for lane splitting. So back from the test ride, and sadly we again have to hide from the rain, but I have to say we still got a really good impression of the bike, and all in all I can already take that away. The bike is awesome. It's a really cool machine. From riding it, you kind of have two bikes at the same time, because with the 4-cylinder, this bike feels so sporty and just makes you want to go with like, and the sound encouraging you. But like at the same time, we had like
quite a lot of rain, so we needed to ride slow, and then like it was so smooth and just chill. So you kind of have two bikes at the same time, and for you having this amazing machine, I think it is so cool that the bike is so versatile that you can go do all the sporty stuff while still like just have a chill ride basically. How is it for you with like actually riding the bike every day and having it as your mode of transportation?
Yeah, so it's one of the reasons why I chose this bike. I think it's in the four-cylinder nature to be nice and sporty, but also be very smooth. Especially for a first bike, I think that's something that you want. Something that is very smooth and subtle in the low end and gets sporty in the top end. Not in like a 600cc super sport kind of a way where it's all at once, but a very linear but like top end power curve. I really like it.
I really have to agree, and honestly, just ringing out the gears is so fun. Sadly, now we had the A2 restricted version, and on the open version that we've both have ridden, because you did that in your license. You done the weird, like, I'm over 21, I get the full open experience at a certain time experience. What bike have you ridden again in your license? Was it that exact bike or the other Honda?
It was this exact bike, but then unrestricted.
Oh, okay. So we both have the background of having ridden that bike, and like openly this bike feels so amazing and so good. In its A2 form, you feel the mapping cut into it being restrictive. I'm used to a restriction in the throttle, and I have to say the restriction is then really noticeable in this machine. You still have a lot of fun, but it really makes you wish for more power. Even though 48 horsepower is kind of the sweet spot of like perfect amount of power, this bike kind of is like, give me some more. So yeah, what is your plan if you then like actually can open up the bike?
So the plan, as I said before, is to put on an open exhaust and then at the same time de-restrict it and dyno tune it, so to fully unlock the power of this motorcycle. As you say, 48 horsepower is enough. If you're doing a lot of curvy roads, you can just twist the throttle and be safe and not lose your license all the time.
I mean, you still absolutely lose your license if you do that. You just don't fucking die, you know. That's. But the thing's still like, if it's 48 horsepower, you will lose your license if you don't look out.
Yeah, but then again, with the current power setup, on the long straights, you are wishing for a little bit more power.
Yeah, definitely. When the bike gets into the like 130, 140 range, you really start to feel it. But as you just mentioned, all the tight turns, and I have to say, the handling of the bike is phenomenal. And for the suspension not being adjustable, except preload in the rear, it does really, really well. It's really nice, and also it's nice over bumps as well. Like you can do loads of city riding while still this thing being sporty, and it doesn't like break your wrists or back when you drive over a bump, which I really like. In general, the bike is, while being sporty, still very comfortable. The only thing that you can complain about when it comes to the hand guards and foot pegs is that the little spacers that make you like drag foot pegs can be quite long. Like they're like fucking this long, but I've been seeing you've basically grinded them down mostly. So
yeah, and they're removable too.
Oh, that they're removable is actually a really good note. That's good to know. And yeah, let's talk a bit about the build quality. I am not the biggest fan of the build quality, but that is because my background is mostly on older motorcycles, and yeah, they don't make them like they used to. That's kind of a shame. The bike, to modern standards, has really a good build quality, but I have a few complaints. For example, the stickers, like this 650R sticker looks like out of a Kinder Surprise egg. But apart from that, it's all good, and you have like a few screws that tend to rust, and they don't really have cover-ups that you can put on like the old Yamahas. But yeah, like you said, in comparison to something like the MT-07, it's quite good.
Build quality on Hondas is quite good. They're built to last. That's what they're known for. Yeah.
And I mean, you get some Honda reliability with this as well, because you took the bike on a big tour. You've now done like 8,000 kilometers on the bike. And also, there's a big German motorcycle YouTuber. He does like big tours on his, and he didn't break down. So I would say that is already solid. And one more thing that I saw a lot of complaints about on Quora and Reddit is the ABS and traction control. And honest moment, even though people complain about it, the traction control and ABS is really, really, really good. And we found out the hard way. Because earlier I was driving behind you, you were driving this bike, and yeah, I'll let you tell the story yourself.
Yeah, so let me start by saying that this was my own fault, not the bike's fault. We were going quite speedy on some back roads and there was gravel in the corner. I didn't see the gravel. I could see it wasn't a very exciting turn, so I went full lean, fully engaged the bike, kept my speed, and of course gravel isn't very sticky, so yeah, the bike slid a bit. Luckily it caught again and I was able to keep on going, and that's most likely because of traction control or other electronics in this bike.
Yes, like I saw the whole thing from behind. I sadly did not catch it on camera, but I saw the gravel and slowed down, but I saw from behind the bike the whole side of the bike. That's how far the bike slid out, and I was thinking that you're going to Mark Marcus yourself into the next realm of reality, and lucky that did not happen. And from riding behind, I was thinking that shit is super unsavable, and it is crazy that the electronics saved that, because it seemed like an impossible thing that this thing pulled off. Like that the electronics managed to calculate it this way to stop this bike from doing that, and also not just like getting the bike traction again, but also not having a high side, is really, really impressive. And like this was one of those situations where you ride for the next half hour contemplating your life, even just from seeing it, and that the bike saved it. Like, yeah, it's either the ABS and traction control is really, really good, or we all need to go to church every Sunday for the rest of our life. So yeah, really, really good. Apart from that, like everything else on the bike, the whole package is really good. You have like, you can clearly see the gears and everything, and I feel like the complete package of the bike is really awesome. And one thing I have to point out, the way that this bike is styled, with the way you have the mirrors on it and all that stuff, I think it's really, really cool. And you own this bike at like being 23, and if you're like 23 and have this thing in your garage, that's fucking cool. Like,
Yeah, thanks.
it must be such a cool experience, just like going out and being like, yeah, this is the thing I ride. Like, wow, really, really cool. Yeah, so this was kind of it about the Honda CB650R. What a cool bike. Feel free to leave your opinion in the comments and subscribe and ring the bell, and see you guys in the next video.